All right, let's get into the studio in NotebookLM. So I am in the notebook that we've been using throughout this series of videos to learn about NotebookLM. You can see I have updated my sources. So I've got lots of sources. All the sources for my unit are in there. My chat has been refreshed to be a little bit more cohesive and comprehensive, I guess is the word I'm looking for the whole unit. I've had some chat work done. I haven't cleared that chat, but now what we're really ready to focus on is the studio. What's kind of cool about this studio is that it has been ever expanding since NotebookLM started. When it first started, I really got into it about a year ago. I think there were maybe 3 buttons over here, and now there are 8, and who knows what's going to happen from there. To really show you what the studio is capable of, I'm not going to start with creating something. Instead, I'm going to start with showing you something that's already been created. So I'm going to actually leave this notebook and go into an older notebook. I'm going to move myself out of the way so we can see the full studio over here. All right. So my go-tos for NotebookLM are the audio files, which is essentially I like the podcast feature, and then the explainer video. I've also just recently tried the infographic and I'm kind of sold, so I'll show you that one. And then I've also been trying to use flashcards. I'm a pretty loyal Quizlet user. But what's kind of cool is I could generate a set of flashcards here, download the CSV file, and then use that to generate flashcards in Quizlet. So, I sort of use this as my starting point to launch off. I have not been that thrilled with the mind map, but of course, everything has been improving. And then I haven't used reports much. I also haven't used quiz much. So there you go. But the best way to learn any and all of these is to play. So even if I don't show it, give it a try. What's the worst that can happen? Delete it if you don't like it, right? So let's look at work in progress, right? So here's my unit 5. There were only 4 lessons in this unit. I like to do these audio segments for each lesson. I just think that that's a little bit easier for students to engage with. Nice, small, bite-sized piece. All right. So, I don't know. We'll just go into one.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really jumping into something fascinating. The incredible rise of Abraham Lincoln.
Right?
How he went from, well, a pretty isolated frontier life, self-taught mostly, all the way to that shocking Republican nomination in 1860.
An amazing story.
Our mission here is to kind of unpack the key moments, the turning points that really forged him politically.
And what jumps out right away is just how different his starting point was.
Yeah.
I mean, real poverty.
Okay, you get the idea. I mean, that's pretty awesome. That's like something you might listen to on a podcast or something. Now, the option I chose for that is deep dive. I know I've got one that is more of a brief. So,
Forcing the issue of slavery's expansion right onto the national stage. And yeah, threatening to tear the Union apart. So how did this expansion kind of break everything? Let's hit 3 key points. First, the California Gold Rush. It just ignited this massive, immediate political crisis. Gold's discovered in 48.
okay, so you can see sort of a little bit of a difference. When you do a brief, I don't think that there is that give and take. I could be wrong on that, though, where you have 2 people talking. And then...
Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're looking at why the U.S. really tumbled into civil war. It wasn't just decades of tension.
Deep dive is more...
Specific events in the 1850s acted like trigger points.
That's right. We're zeroing in on 5 key moments, really a rapid-fire sequence between...
Okay. And they're usually, I always ask for it to be shorter, the deep dive to be shorter. A shorter deep dive will usually get you under 6 minutes. Okay. If you do a longer or the default, you might be looking at 11, 12, even 14 minutes. I think for my students, that's a bit too long. I'm not teaching IAP. I'm not teaching IB. You judge what's right for your students. So those are audio overviews. Let me show you an explainer video, and then we will go back to my Unit 7 notebook and we'll do some creating. Okay, so here is an explainer video. I'm going to go full screen with this, and I'm going to go ahead and play.
Let's go back in time. Picture it. It's 1850. On the surface, America looks like it's thriving. It's expanding west, it's getting richer, but underneath all that energy, there's a deep, dangerous crack forming, and the whole country is holding its breath over one single issue: slavery. So what happened? Seriously, how does a nation go from a series of desperate compromises to the single deadliest war in its history, all in the span of 1 decade?
I'm going to
That's the
bounce
story
around
we're going to unpack today,
kind of
the
are getting
10-year
yeah.
fuse that led to the Civil War. So
Now,
the crisis of the 1850s
it's using
really
some
kicks off
content. Now,
with
this is a map I
land,
was able
a
to get
whole
off
lot of
of
new land.
just a
See,
Google
after the
search. My
Mexican-American
screen
War, the
partners and my
U.S. is
speaker
suddenly
notes. If not,
massive.
that is
The
common use.
problem,
But
for
that's
years, the
pulling
country had
from
kept
one of
this
my
uneasy peace by
slideshows.
maintaining a perfect,
Let me keep bouncing a little bit
delicately
here.
abolitionists who
Its
wanted to
own
end slavery
created
everywhere.
materials. I asked for what's called an
But
explainer
that's what
video,
all these compromises really were. They weren't solutions.
talking about why compromises
Compromise of
all
1850
set
basically
into
lit a
these
new, shorter,
little segments. It's really,
saw it
really
as a total
fantastic. Now,
victory.
this is a
The
little bit
ground for
longer.
compromise,
This
it
is
was
about
just gone.
8.5 minutes
And
long.
finally, there was
Got
John
Brown
Brown.
there,
In
right? All right. So you're
1859, this
starting to get the
passionate
idea there of what
abolitionist
an
led a raid on
explainer
a
video
federal
is.
weapons
Okay.
arsenal at
So like I
Harper's
said, those
Ferry,
are two
Virginia.
of
He
really
was
my
hoping to
favorites
arm
on
enslaved
the
people and start a
production front.
massive
Now,
rebellion.
with all
The
of
raid was a
these, I
failure,
am
and Brown
able
was
to
hanged. But
download this,
his death split
including
the
the
country
audio
in
files.
two.
I'm able
In
to
the North,
download these
many
out
hailed
of
him as a martyr who died
NotebookLM
for freedom.
and then link
In the
them
South,
onto
he was a
Canvas. I
terrorist,
also, of course,
the
as we've
embodiment
already
of their
talked about, I'm
absolute
able to
worst
share
fears.
this and make this into
The country no
videos
longer
that my
even
students are
shared
a
the
part
same
of.
heroes and
But
villains.
sometimes I find that if
All of this
I
chaos and violence
put
was
it
just
on,
tearing the old
I
political
link this
system
video
apart.
onto
The
Canvas, and
major
there the
political
video
parties
is
were
right within
literally
a Canvas
cracking
page,
up,
and they can just
unable to handle the
so I
strain.
do find with
And
the
that chaos
explainer
created
videos,
an opening
sometimes
for a
it's nice to
brand new
pull it out
political
of
party
NotebookLM and
and
put
a
it on
new kind of
Canvas. They
leader.
might be more
The
likely
Whig
to
Party,
use
one
it
of
if
the
you
two
assign it
major
as a
parties
video,
for
okay?
decades, just
So this is what
completely
those
disintegrated
are.
over slavery.
Also, that's
And
me
out of
there.
its
I do it
ashes
here.
rose
You
the
can see
Republican
I've sort
Party
of
in the
shared it
mid-1850s.
already with
It was
all
a
of my students.
coalition
All
of
right, I'm going to get out of the studio real quick. And let's jump over to a different notebook. Let's go into this unit 7 that is still this work in progress for me. Okay. So one thing that I tried with this notebook is the infographic. I was just really curious. That's new. What does that look like? I'm kind of a little bit impressed. So here is the infographic it created for me. So the Gilded Age, obviously, on the surface, it looked beautiful. You've got Carnegie or Carnegie, as I think you're supposed to pronounce his name, and Rockefeller. The golden surface, unprecedented growth. Rust is settled. Yeah, the railroads, you've got steel and all that. But underneath, the tarnished core, widespread hardship. Systemic injustices codified. We've got the Dawes Act, Plessy versus Ferguson, the legal system. Yeah, slavery is over, but shift in European migration, the urban tenements and the dumbbell tenements, extreme wealth, and the inequity in the system. I actually kind of like this. This is actually really cool. So for a first time doing that, that's really cool. Again, I can download this. Let's see what it's going to download for me. It went into so it downloaded as a PNG file, which is fantastic. And I can just use that wherever it's going to best serve my students. Okay, so that's creating an infographic. Let me just give you some top tips on creating the audio and the video, because again, I think those are two of the more powerful pieces. And then I'll probably wrap up. And any of these other ones, learn by doing, learn by asking, etc. So the audio overview. On these studio elements, anytime you see this little pencil icon, that means that you're able to control some of the options of the creation. So I'm going to go into that. So you can see there's different ideas here. More often than not, I will do a deep dive because that's that lively conversation between two hosts. You saw an example of doing a brief, just a little bite-sized, under 2 minutes, quick explainer, one person speaking. And then you can see there's also like a critique. And I love that idea of a debate. I have used that before. I would struggle to remember where I've used it, but I've used that. And you want the length to be short when you do that. Again, default is usually sort of around 10 minutes. Long tends to be closer to 14. And just like when you're using any sort of LLM, you do need to give this good guidance as to what you want this to be about. Awesome in, awesome out, garbage in, garbage out. That applies to so many things, and it applies here. I'm going to back up one step here, and I'm going to tell you that before you do that, something I should have said first is you have to tell it what sources you want to do this on. So if I am making an audio overview and I just want it to be about my Unit 1 materials or my Lesson 1 materials, not Unit 1, I'm going to deselect all of these. And can you see my source number is going down as I do that? When I deselect these, any conversation that I have, any chat that I have is solely going to be based on the sources that I have selected. Now I've got 2 documents in here that are across an entire unit, but I think I'm going to be okay keeping those checked. So now that I've got those checked, let's go back to this audio overview. I'm going to click on the pencil. I want a deep dive. I want a shorter one. And now I'm going to tell it what I want it to talk about. So please, if I get my keyboard working here, please focus on 3 key elements of immigration in the U.S. in the Gilded Age. Hopefully, if I were not doing this on a video, I think I would give more information there about what's new immigration versus old immigration, mention dumbbell tenements, etc. I'm just not that quick of a typer. Okay, so that's good enough. And I'm going to go ahead and click the generate button. I'll probably delete this and redo that for my purposes, but you get the idea, right? So I click on the pencil, I tell it what I want, it's going to do what I want. Now, with the free version, there is a limit, I think, of creating 3 audio overviews in a 24-hour period. So don't sit down and think I can create all the audio overviews for my whole unit in this one plan period that I have. You're going to have to come back, if it's more than 3 at least, you're going to have to come back to it at a later time. So just keep that in mind. I don't know if there is a limit in terms of audio overview versus also then doing a video overview, et cetera, et cetera. Now, can I get it multitasking? Absolutely. So video overview, again, I see the pencil icon. That means I can make some editing options. So do you want it to be brief? Do you want an explainer video? I've done explainer videos for everything. This is new as of like December. It's got all these different formats. I've tried that whiteboard. The one I showed you was whiteboard, but you can choose different ones here. And again, garbage in, garbage out, awesome in, awesome out. So tell it what you want it to focus on and then click your generate button and it will generate for you. Okay. I'm not going to do this right now because it would just, all we would see is it sitting here doing this. Okay. I'm not sure I'll have time to go back to this. The flashcards, I will say, well, I did try the flashcards here. It gave me a decent set of flashcards. How I can then use that, if I go to my downloads button, it did give me a CSV file when I downloaded that. I can take that CSV file, open it in Excel or Sheets, copy that and paste that into Quizlet and create a set of create a set of flashcards in Quizlet because I tend to use Quizlet and have a class set for Quizlet. I would love to be able to see this end result, but I'm not sure we're going to be able to without me just sitting here. Let me think if there's anything else I want to talk about here with you. Last video that I'm going to make on our NotebookLM series will be the share feature. What does it look like for a student when I share it with them and I use the different options that I have available to me? Am I going to give them full access to my notebook or am I going to give them limited access to the notebook? And so what does it look like on their end when I do that? So I'll share it with a student. I'll log in as that student and then you can see what that looks like. Okay. I think that's all. Maybe one last thing. Again, everything we generate is going to get stored here. And these 3 dots are where my options live, my downloading options, that ability to rename it. So for example, if we jump back to that Unit 5 notebook, you can see I kept my naming convention going even over here. I think for student accessibility, that's a really good thing to practice. And so even though it did not call this 5.1 sectional conflict, I went back and used my 3 dots to rename it to that. And so that's sort of maybe one last element there. Okay. I think that's it on that. Use that studio, share the outcome of that studio. I think it's really cool and I think can meet our students where they're at in terms of consuming content. All right. Thanks.